what really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Friday, October 28th, 2016. As you can tell, I'm getting over my cold. I'm getting over my throat issues. Voice is still a little husky today. By Monday, I'll be back to my normal obnoxious self. And thank you to everybody who sent get well wishes and recommendations on things I should try to get over this. And I especially am thankful for these two different emails who each suggested drinking a quart of whiskey every 24 hours because that totaled half a gallon, and that seems to have really kind of helped things out here. Now, this is a day full of all kinds of interesting developments, and there's a couple of layers we need to look at. Now, as you probably already heard, the FBI has informed the Congress that they are reopening the Clinton email investigation. Now, they're ignoring the fact that Congress sent an order to the FBI a few days ago, reopen this thing. And right now, everybody's jockeying to maintain image and position, and they're already out there saying this has got nothing to do with what's in WikiLeaks, and it's got nothing to do with those pesky citizen activists. We have, on our own regard, decided to reopen this investigation based on evidence that surfaced in connection with Anthony Weiner's sexting investigation. Apparently, something was on a device owned by Anthony Weiner or Huma Abedin that needs to be looked at. And this was announced earlier this morning. Hillary's already had a campaign stop in which she got off the airplane, basically did the same standard speech she's been doing to everybody, and you can see her looking down and getting the notes and everything. Didn't even respond to it. The only response so far from the Clinton campaign is get the information out there so we can put this behind us or kill the appropriate witnesses or whatever else is going on. But it is kind of underscoring the fact that the investigation by the FBI, the first investigation, just really wasn't there to begin with. And it's significant. Not too long ago, for some reason, the FBI had jurisdiction in a case where Angelina Jolie, on a private plane with Brad Pitt, and there was allegedly a physical altercation involving their 15-year-old son, and the FBI got involved. They questioned Angelina Jolie for 4 hours, but only questioned Hillary for 3.5. And Director Comey told Congress, the investigation is complete, and then all of a sudden we find out, no, it isn't complete. Now, obviously, with only 10 days to go to the election, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot that comes out of the investigation, and it doesn't really matter. Politics is perception. This is a bombshell, because the American people are going to look at this and say, yeah, there's some kind of cover-up, and we don't even need to know what is being covered up. The cover-up itself is the problem. Even Richard Nixon said, it's not the crime that does you in. It is that cover-up. And we have the perception of a cover-up in front of everybody. Let's grab a phone call. Bob in Las Vegas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yeah, you sound a lot better. Good to hear your voice is back and you're feeling...
Yeah, it's getting 100%. There. It's getting there, yes.
Yeah, I kind of like the grouchy Mike, but let me get to my question.
Claire does not.
First, I was happy to hear about the FBI announcement, but I just wanted to ask you if you had seen that story from RT about, I hate to get off the subject, but it's an important subject, Putin rejecting the Ministry of Defense's call to continue to start the bombing again of Aleppo.
I hadn't actually seen that. I'm not surprised. Putin is trying to tone things down. And I think at this point, his attitude now is to wait and see what happens in the election. Because if Trump wins, then Putin just has to sit back, wait until the end of January in the inauguration, and then everything gets settled down. So I think at this point...
I just hope Putin's not being intimidated by this.
No.
UNHCR call for war crime investigations and,
No, he isn't. He's basically toning it down. If there are any provocations or escalations between now and the election, or between the election and the inauguration of Donald Trump, it's all going to be seen by the world to be coming from the U.S. and NATO side, and I think that's what Putin is gambling on right now.
Okay. And what do you attribute, going back to the FBI story, what do you attribute this? I mean, did Comey have a road to Damascus moment, or what happened? What in your opinion?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I think is may be going on. And it's not just the announcement that the email server investigation is being reopened, but all of a sudden the corporate media is starting to report on the scandals being leaked out by WikiLeaks, Clinton Inc., and that is on the front page of major newspapers all across the country, like somebody overnight threw a switch and said, okay, it's time for the corporate media to really start dealing head on with just how corrupt the Clintons are. And what I suspect has happened is the numbers have come in from the early voting that started this week. And it has become immediately obvious that even with all the illegal immigrants and the dead voters, Hillary Clinton cannot prevail over Donald Trump. And now that she's not perceived as gaining the presidency and being able to punish her enemies, they're turning on her. And they're building an ejection seat for her to basically get her out before the really bad secrets, the ones that threaten the entire government, have a chance to come on out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought the numbers were really bad for Hillary, and they need something to get her out. Maybe she'll pull out of the campaign. Who knows? And they'll put Biden in as a last minute.
I think at this point, if Hillary has to step down, Tim Kaine would step into her position. But there's no way Kaine can win an election against Donald Trump. It's a postscript only.
Oh, lastly, Mike, I'll tell you, that was interesting about, you said your grandfather used to sit around and drink with Nixon.
They got plastered. It wasn't just a polite little drink. They'd get into that wild turkey, and they would get absolutely 3 sheets into the wind and spend the night screaming about them damn Kennedy boys.
Wow. I tell you, Mike, you need to, I know you don't like to name names, you need to write a book and start naming names, because I'd buy that book.
Well, when you live a long time, sooner or later you just experience life and these things come to you. And it was just luck that my grandfather was a very big player in New Hampshire politics. The governor's mansion for the state was just around the corner from where he lived in East Concord. And so we knew Stiles Bridges, and Stiles Bridges was considering a run for the White House as a possible throwaway candidate against Kennedy's second term. And Nixon was advising him on the campaign. And when Nixon was done with that, he'd come on over, and my mother and grandmother would head on out to the church to play bingo because they didn't want to be around for what was going to follow. And I was a little kid. I'd hide up on the top of the staircase behind the newel post, and I'd just watch them go at it all night long.
That's fascinating.
I need to take a second here and do a shout out to our honor affiliates who are rejoining our network. We're talking about the FBI has reopened the investigation into Hillary's email server. It is somehow tangled up with the investigation into sexting allegations by Anthony Weiner, which at this point, who really cares? But it's reopened. And it has created a perception that, yes, there is still some kind of a cover-up just 10 days before the election, and it is a real body check. And together with the fact that all of a sudden, all of the American corporate media is starting to report on the stories about corruption coming out of WikiLeaks, it almost feels like somebody last night got together with a bunch of other people and said, Hillary can't win this. We don't have to be afraid of her. Let's actually go on out and try and salvage what's left of our reputations by doing our jobs.
Wow. All right, that's all I have, Mike. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for the phone call. Anyway, let's get rid of that. Now, obviously, as soon as he got word, Donald Trump told the rally where he was that the FBI investigation was restarted. Everybody started cheering and started chanting, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. And I'd like to see that. I'm sure most Americans would, but I'd like to go one step further. I would like to see Larry Klayman's RICO lawsuit against that Clinton Foundation reinstated and prosecuted to allow the government to basically confiscate all of that illegally gained wealth. Because prison and even a death sentence are nothing. The way you really hurt a money junkie is you take away their money and you make them go back to being poor people. That is the ultimate punishment. I want to see Bill and Hillary Clinton in a little one-bedroom suburban house, and he's having to work at the 7-Eleven and she's having to take in laundry. That's what I want to see, if there's any justice whatsoever. Charles Krauthammer is out there basically saying Clinton set up the server to hide her dirty business and the corruption of the Clinton Foundation. Everybody is starting to turn on the Clintons all at once. You can almost feel like there's this sudden sea change, like the earth is moving under us. People are going on back and repounding on the fact that Barack Obama lied to us all when he said that he found out about Hillary's private email server from the news media the same time as everybody else. We know that he was sending emails to Hillary on her private server, most of which have not been turned over. They were supposedly part of the private emails being deleted. Because I'm sure when the President of the United States is sending emails to the Secretary of State, it's about yoga and the daughter's wedding and all the rest of that stuff. And all of a sudden, those missing 33,000 emails just got a little bit more important. Now, more things coming out from WikiLeaks and the Podesta emails. The Clinton donor who ran the for-profit university was invited to a State Department dinner by Hillary just before that university gave Bill Clinton a $17 million honorary job. And by the way, that's a good gig. $17.5 million paid over 5 years, and you show up and make a couple of speeches, and that's it. I'd take a job like that. It's amazing here. So far, going through the WikiLeaks DNC emails, Podesta, we've tallied up 124 references to quid pro quo and pay to play. It was openly in there, and one of the reasons that this Bill Clinton Inc. story is out there is the people in these emails are bragging to each other about how they're getting away with all this stuff. And they're making the media look like fools. And I think that was kind of the final straw. Is that we're not going to do that. Not all the media, of course. I mean, Megyn Kelly's still out there saying, well, yes, there's a new FBI investigation, but we have a kitten trapped in a storm drain. We're going to have camera coverage out there. And Megyn Kelly's still out there defending Hillary Clinton. She was attacking Trump and Newt Gingrich. She's still out there trying to say, Trump is a sex monster. He used to look at beautiful women lined up for his approval. It was called a beauty contest, Megyn. You're supposed to do that sort of thing. Now there's an interesting little story. This is coming out of Real True News, and we have to put this one as a rumor, but it makes sense. We know the allegations that Hillary swings both ways, that Huma swings both ways. In fact, the reason Anthony Weiner may be out there having so much fun with other women is that Huma may have married him as cover for her own sexual orientation as she got into politics. And the rumor that is coming out of Real True News is that Megyn Kelly and Huma Abedin are kind of an item. But you have to wonder, there has to be some explanation for why Megyn Kelly is out there making an utter fool of herself defending the indefensible. Okay, let's see. We're going to go ahead and grab a phone call. Laura from Kansas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I know it's been a while. Unfortunately, I'm working when you're on the air. I only get today to
so
call
am I.
in. I know, right? Hopefully, your great nephew enjoyed the little.
He
thing
did.
That I did for him.
He did.
Oh.
I absolutely did. Thank you again for that.
You're so welcome. I'm happy to hear that. Hey, I have a couple things that one has been bothering me for a while. I actually subscribe to Judicial Watch, and I listen to Tom Fitton on what he says and what they're doing. And actually, they've been really digging up a lot of stuff. But one of the things that bothers me is that he said that actually that they could have impeached Hillary Clinton all along when they were doing all of this investigation and questioning Comey and all of stuff. If they found wrongdoing, they could have actually gone ahead and impeached her even though she's not in office. And the other thing was they could have done a vote of no confidence on Comey. What do you know? Is that true, or what? Why wouldn't they do that? If
well,
they could?
Okay, you have to be careful what you mean by we. Judicial Watch cannot do any of those things. Congress has to do them, and that is
that's what he meant.
Yeah, that's a very pertinent question. Why was Congress unwilling to carry out their responsibilities regarding all this corruption by Hillary Clinton, this utter dereliction of duty, obstruction of justice by James Comey, and on up to President Obama himself? Obama has committed impeachable offenses. But, Congress is just as compromised as everybody else. There was this anonymous FBI insider was leaking information onto the net, basically saying the Clinton Foundation is the giant money laundry slush fund, and everybody of any consequence in Washington, D.C. is dirty from it.
Wow. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I used to not have a very high regard for the Inquirer. It was always that newspaper that, says all these odd stories that, I'm not going to pay attention. But, for what they have been coming out with stories that later on have actually come to be, find out they were true. And they're talking up a story that's going to come out where there's an insider that what they have to tell the public is going to actually alienate a portion of her voters that it's so bad what this person has to say that it's actually going to alienate them. Did you hear anything about?
Oh, I've been following that along, and you need to understand the history of the National Enquirer because a while back it was your typical supermarket tabloid. The Incredible Frog Boy is running amok, UFOs and all the rest of it. And they were doing sensationalist news about celebrities, and they were very, very reckless. And they made some allegations about Carol Burnett. And up until that point, the attitude of celebrities had been, well, it's all nonsense. It's a supermarket tabloid. We know it's junk, and even bad publicity is better than no publicity at all. But Carol Burnett took offense, and she sued the National Enquirer, and she won. And following that, the Enquirer had a change of editorial policy, where they're a lot more professional in terms of their journalistic ethics. Frankly, I think they should have changed their name at the same time, but they didn't. And ever since then, they've been very, very careful. Where if there is something in their pages, yes, it's going to be sensationalized, and they're going to fan it all up for all the gore and shock that they can. But it's pretty much been fact checked, and so a lot of the stuff that's coming out of the Enquirer, you do need to pay attention to it.
So I'm thinking since now that you said that, that's why they've been out there. With these ads, get out and vote now. It's almost like they're rushing everybody that would possibly vote for her to vote before something comes out.
Yes.
Almost like they don't want to lose any more votes because they know something is coming out in the future. So that would make a lot of sense. Well, I appreciate it. I'm just so happy I got to call in today and actually say hi. And I did go in, and so did my son, and we voted. We made sure that the machine said Trump, and it didn't switch it to Clinton. I made a big deal about it when I walked in. I told them, are these machines having any problems? And they said, nope. I said, because I'm going to be watching. And if they are, we're going to have problems. So, but
Good
it did.
for you.
It marked down for Trump.
Good for you.
All right. And our war rep.
Good for you.
So much.
All right.
It.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to let you go here. We're coming up on a commercial break here. But again, all of a sudden, the corporate media is now switching over to the independent media's point of view. The Wall Street Journal had an article about the Clintons. Meet the grifters in chief. This is the Wall Street Journal. And it almost reminds me of back when the Downing Street memo first surfaced. And for a month, it was the top news on the independent media. Corporate media ignored it. And then finally, when everybody knew it anyway, the corporate media grudgingly said, yeah, there's this thing, the Downing Street memo, that sort of makes it look like you were sold the war in Iraq on a bunch of lies. Happening all over again. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And like I said, it's not just the announcement that the FBI is reopening the email investigation, all of a sudden the corporate media is starting to step up and take a serious, objective, honest look at what's been going on with the Clinton Foundation. The Morning Joe show just did an absolutely devastating report on the total corruption of the Clinton Foundation. And this story about Bill Clinton, Inc., and that scandal, and how they were, the Clinton Foundation people were openly laughing about how they were blurring the line between what little charitable work the foundation was doing and simply sucking the money in and putting it into the Clintons' pockets. And it's on the front page, not just in the newspaper, on the front page of the New York Post, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe. It's all over the place. It's like all of a sudden the corporate media woke up and remembered what its job is supposed to be. Now, I'm not quite at the point of saying, oh, great, I can shut this all down and go do something else with the rest of my life. But it is refreshing to see. But like I said, I think what's going on is they're crafting the ejection seat. They're looking for a way to get Hillary out without tripping off any of her threatened blackmail maneuvers. Because there are secrets involving that email server that would, if I'm correct, and she really was selling U.S. secrets to foreign governments using that weak email server and collecting and laundering the money in that foundation, that's a scandal that could bring the entire government down. And they may be scrambling as this whole thing starts to fall apart. Now, Julian Assange has just issued a tweet to the effect that the next document dump from WikiLeaks would justify the immediate arrest of Hillary Clinton. It probably won't happen because the government is totally, totally corrupt. But more is to come. Hillary Clinton failed to disclose $400,000 in expensive gifts, private jets, and vacations given to Bill, even though she was obligated to do so as Secretary of State. While Hillary was Secretary of State, Bill was raking in the dough. And frankly, I would add another zero to that number if I were you, because $400,000 sounds a little bit low for the ambitions of the Clintons. Okay, moving on down here. Apparently, a recording has surfaced of Hillary Clinton talking about rigging an election all the way back in 2006. Another email has surfaced, this one from Huma Abedin, communicating with Podesta, saying that Hillary is still not right in the head. Another video today of her trying to board the campaign plane, stumbling, mumbling to herself. Doesn't look good at all. All right, let's take a phone call. Alex in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to mention that, we all know that if the media shouldn't have, at the bare minimum, they should have questioned more of the allegations of the Clinton Foundation. However, I think that at this point, this could be their chance to be able to justify why they've been rigging the polls. I don't think the polls the real polls should never show that Hillary Clinton's 10 points ahead. And maybe they're taking this opportunity to say, well, it's now that some more evidence has come out, her polls have dropped, and it's actually, her ratings have dropped, and actually she's down 20 points now. Well,
in the real numbers, she's lost 8 points in the last 4 days. That's a bad trend. No, what's going on is, we know from the Podesta emails that some 60 of the top talking heads and executives of the corporate media were all buddy-buddy with Podesta. They were going to help Hillary win the campaign, for which they would get a quid pro quo of having the independent media shut down. But I think all of a sudden they're realizing Hillary's not going to win the White House, she can't make good on her promises, and worse, she's going to drag all these people who were helping her down with her, and now they're panicking. Thank you for the phone call, Alex. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And I forgot to mention at the top of the program, the lovely Lady Claire will be with us today in hour number 3 to help me finish the show without overtaxing my voice. Let's go back to the telephones. Peter in Los Angeles, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I can hardly get my mind around what you're telling me and what this sea change that's going on here. I can hardly get my mind around it. They, for 30 years, everything they've done has been swept under the, 2 days ago, yesterday, Michelle Obama was out there saying that Hillary Clinton was the greatest thing since sliced bread and the most qualified candidate ever. And Barack Obama was out there in his black preacher speaking cadence talking about how great Hillary is and vote for Hillary. And today, it's like, I think your theory is plausible as any. I can barely get my mind around it.
Well, it's the old bird on a wire situation. All the birds are sitting, and then one takes off, and immediately the rest of them follow. And, I've had people sending in emails, this new FBI investigation, it's another dodge. They'll come out with something that makes Hillary look good, or she can play victim. And if it was only the announcement of the FBI investigation, I would say it's a possibility. But to all of a sudden see the entire corporate media go on and start talking about what we in the independent media have been talking about for months and months now, the corruption of the Clinton Foundation. There's been a sea change out there. And I think the catalyst were those early voting numbers. And they're realizing Hillary is not going to be the president, short of an assassination of Donald Trump. And she can't keep her promises that she made to get this blind support from the corporate media. And now they got to think about salvaging what's left of their image and reputation going into next year. Or they're just going to collapse and be swept away. And so I'm smelling panic out there.
Mike, I know I've mentioned it to you before on the show that I never could understand why Obama would appoint Hillary Clinton to Secretary of State to begin with, knowing, having campaigned against her, just how heinous she was, how corrupt she was. I mean, nobody knew it better than Obama. And how completely inexperienced, and of course he screwed up foreign policy beyond recognition, unless he wanted in on the Clinton Foundation gravy train.
Well, there may have been something else, because remember back in 2008, they really thought Hillary was going to get it then, and all of a sudden Obama came out of nowhere and he was winning, and there was massive election fraud going on. And I remember in particular the primary in New Hampshire, where going on in the polls were showing it was going to be Obama, and then miracle of miracles, in the middle of the night a whole bunch of new votes come on in, and Hillary Clinton has a surprise victory in New Hampshire, which was a make or break. Because if she'd lost New Hampshire, her campaign would have been over at that point. And then remember that Obama and Hillary had that private meeting in a home. The media made a big deal about the fact that they were meeting to talk one-on-one. Nobody else was allowed, even inside the house. And then they all went on out, and Hillary kind of faded into the woodwork, and Obama became president. And I think that's where they made the deal, where Hillary said, I'm going to step back, let you win this presidency. You're going to make me Secretary of State, so I've got foreign policy credentials so that I can run in 2016, on a much stronger platform. And I think that's where the deal was made. And yes, of course, Obama is probably involved in the Clinton Foundation gravy train. The fact that he was lying about knowing about Hillary's email server, that to me is very serious, because if in fact Hillary Clinton was using that weak email server to transfer U.S. secrets to foreign interests in exchange for donations to the Clinton Foundation, then Barack Obama, knowing about it and failing to do anything about it, at the very least, it's misprision of espionage.
Mike, do you think this could be a limited hangout to protect Obama?
I think it's a limited hangout to protect the entire government. I think they're trying to prevent the true scale of what's been going on from being exposed to the American people in the world. and I think they're going to try and focus on the corruption angle to edge Hillary out and hope that the espionage scandal that I'm convinced that's what was definitely going on. That has to be kept under the rug because that could bring the entire government down.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that espionage thing. It's just hard for me to grasp after all the double dealing the press has done that now finally 8 days before the election or whatever, it's a mind-boggling.
Well,
but,
let's be honest here. I've been saying this in my sign-off message for weeks now. We are 200, 300 million Americans working against a few hundred people in government and the corporate media. We outnumber them. They're trying to basically fight an avalanche, which, if you know anybody who's ever been in an avalanche, you don't win against that. And it may have just hit the point where they said, we have to go along with this because if we push back any further, we are literally running a risk of an armed revolution in this country, and nobody wants that, I don't think.
Whoa. Wow. This sure is, we are living in interesting times,
yes,
are we not?
Yes. And I'm beginning to appreciate that ancient Chinese curse, may you be a person of influence in interesting times.
Wow. Well, you had that, Michael. But anyways, listen, we'll let you get to other ones. I know they must be lined up today.
Yeah, they certainly are here, and thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And before we go back to the phones here, I want to hit this story because with the breaking of the FBI investigation and Hillary's 8-point over 4-day decline in the polls, they're going back to the threat of terror. And so we're seeing this story coming on out. This is in governmentslaves.info, where a top Black Lives Matter activist is saying, if Trump wins the election, we will incite riots across the country. And apparently Tefpo, who's a Black Lives Matter activist and a rapper who wants to sell more records, is out there saying, if Donald Trump wins the presidency, N-word will incite riots everywhere. Well, Mr. Poe, there's a problem with that. There's a lot of people out here who are not the N-word, and we have guns. And if you're going to come on out here and do brown shirt crud with us, you're probably going to be met with force. And by the way, I got to share this wonderful story with you before we go any further. There's a group called Black Women for Donald Trump. And they've been out there putting out their little signs, and they got this little strip of grass near a major highway that they've got, and they're putting the signs on there. And the Clintonistas, the brown shirts, have delighted in just taking their pickup truck and just driving down the grass strip, knocking over all the signs. Ha ha ha, it's fun, violence in the name of democracy. So these Black Women for Trump came up with a great idea. They made their own version of a speed strip. Took a 2x4, pounded it full of spikes, and then attached it to the ground at the base of every one of their Donald Trump signs. The Clintonistas came along and ripped their tires to shred. Good for these girls. Good for these girls. Back to the phones. Mary in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I was thinking that, all this corruption, when you saw all the people that were supporting Hillary, especially on the news, and some of these people were trying to do these bad things, I'm thinking it brought their true character. Now we can recognize all these crooks, and now they see the writing on the wall. They see that Hillary won't possibly win. Also, what could she do? She can't kill off, all these people against her, and she can't do anything to them on the spur of the moment now. And I think they see the writing on the wall that she's going to be harmless. Basically, Trump is overwhelmingly. I caught the end of his live speech, so it's like it was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, you need to understand there's 3 different classes of Hillary supporters. And only the top one has to worry about themselves personally. That inner circle, top tier, are the ones who are committing illegal actions, know they're committing illegal actions. They could testify against Hillary Clinton. Those are the ones who are going to wind up dead under mysterious circumstances, even if Hillary Clinton wins the White House. Then below that, you have the staffers and workers, many of whom appear to be very upset about what it is they've gotten tangled up with, because they're now starting to think, how's this going to look on my resume? And it's not going to look very good. And then below that, you have these people in the pickup trucks running over the Trump signs and sneaking up on lawns and stealing. These are the useful idiots, to use Joseph Stalin's term for them. They're caught up in the jingoism. They don't really know Hillary. They've never met her. They've maybe seen her at a distance, or one of the doubles at a distance. They're caught up in the sloganeering, and they want to feel like they're part of history without actually knowing what the heck is going on. And it's very easy to manipulate and use such people. They'll just head on out, and they'll find some other cause to champion, like baby seals or some other such nonsense.
Right, but I don't know if they'll get paid afterwards. Maybe they will, because George Soros is still out there doing his mischief, and some of the others. But I'm just saying, like, they started doing this. I remember with the first Trump rally, it's like they were getting paid, and different reporters and InfoWars that were finding the want ads, and now it's come out in WikiLeaks. And obviously, and there were a few supporters of whoever or detractors of Trump that were like high school officials or teachers, and they brought their classes there because there were a lot of young kids there that were only 15 years old.
Yeah, they're not even old enough to vote. InfoWars the other day caught one of Hillary's motorcades coming into an event, and it had buses full of audience. They brought their own audience with them. It's all theater. It's all for show, and it's all coming apart. And I think the catalyst were those early voting numbers. Because that's the only thing, to my awareness now. Maybe something happened in the deep, deep background I'm not aware of. But those early voting numbers, to me, are the only thing that explains all of a sudden this sudden shift in the FBI, in the corporate media, against Hillary. Is all of a sudden they're realizing, even with all the election fraud, she cannot win. She's not going to win. She can't keep her promises. Worse, she can't protect all these people who've been committing crimes on behalf of her campaign.
Right, exactly. That was my point. And I don't know if you caught any of his live speech today. It was drop dead terrific.
Yes.
Drop dead terrific. Okay. And that's what I want to say. And I know you don't believe in dreams and stuff like that, but I have had precognitive dreams since I was young. I dreamed 20 years before all the details of 9/11, like I was hovering over the site of the Twin Towers.
Okay.
And I saw all this stuff. But anyhow, about 6 months ago, before Trump declared, and all this illegal stuff is going on, and I dreamed that, I had an uncle that was a law professor and another one that was dean of Yale Law School, and he came back to me to straighten out his hair, because he just came out of his grave, and he goes, I know how to fix these problems. He says, file an injunction. Because they were coming out with all these lawsuits, and I think if you just file injunctions instead of the lawsuits, they have to abide by the law, right? I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
Well, no, to get an injunction, there has to be a supporting underlying law. You can't just go to a judge and say, I don't like sunflowers, so tell my neighbor they're not allowed to grow sunflowers. There has to be an existing law against sunflowers. Okay?
But there are a lot of laws that they are breaking. I mean, there's a lot of laws
No question about it. No question about it. The big problem right now for the American people is that back in 1981, we lost our ability to independently file criminal charges against other people. The idea of a citizen's arrest doesn't exist anymore. And it basically gave the local prosecutors and the U.S. attorneys and the Attorney General sole discretion who gets punished for a crime and who does not. And that right there opened the floodgates for corruption. Remember, when Bill Clinton first became president, he took this history-making step of literally firing every single U.S. attorney in the country and replacing them with his cronies who could be relied on never, ever, ever to prosecute anything done by the Bushes or the Clintons.
Wow.
I was actually told during one of the earlier hacking attacks against my server, there were death threats being made against me and my wife. So I went through the process of filing a complaint with the FBI. I didn't have high hopes, and as it turned out, it wasn't there. I was literally told off the record by an FBI agent, and no, I'm not going to give you the name, because the guy was doing me a favor. And I was told off the record, he said, the U.S. attorneys have already said attacks against political activists are not going to be investigated or prosecuted. It's open season on you. It's open season on your servers. And you're just going to have to live with that.
Well, anyhow, after all of this, I think it has brought some of these crooks out of the woodworks that we always were thought that were on. Do you know what I mean? It's
the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg. Exactly. You still are going to be shocked at just how bad it really, really got. And I think that's why the metaphor of draining the swamp has come on in. And ironically enough, that land where Washington, D.C. sits was a swamp. It was a malarial swamp. It was land that George Washington really didn't know what to do with. That's why he said, here, you guys can have it. Build on it. It's your problem. And have all the mosquitoes on me.
That's funny. That's funny. I know, like New Jersey used to be mosquitoes.
I understand in New Jersey the state bird is the mosquito.
Say what? The state bird?
The state bird of New Jersey is the mosquito.
Is it really?
No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Okay. All right.
I'm thinking that, okay.
All right. I'm sorry?
They made a joke about it in Pioneers Go Home, how the Jersey Skeeters. And I remember when I was a kid, they were horrible. But they've since taken care of them. We have so many swamps here.
We have a lot of mosquitoes here, and unfortunately it's been getting worse because the state has had to cut the budget for what's called vector control. And as a result, we have a lot more pests, a lot more mosquitoes, including the ones that carry dengue fever, which I had to deal with about a year ago.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to let you go. We got to take a break for a commercial here. We got callers waiting on the line, and I will get to all of you. It may take me a little while. Please be patient, drink some coffee, and we'll be back after these few words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. The phone lines are loaded up. Let's go to Mo in Florida. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Aloha. I think this is a pretty good day for the alternative media. And,
independent media. Independent media. Alternative has a negative connotation. Alternative makes it sound like we're a bunch of hippies. And at my age, I don't have enough hair to be a hippie. Okay.
Well, you're part of the leading tip of the spear, along with Infowars and the other Mad Drudge. I think
Mia Maxima Culpa.
Yeah, I think we've really reached it. I feel it. People I talk to, it's all come to a head. I think we're finally realizing these crooks are going to go to jail. But my question was about Comey. I know that like Eisenhower mentioned or gave that speech about the military-industrial complex, and Comey was the lead counsel for Lockheed Martin. And, he's part of that whole thing, and I've heard. I'm not going to say from where because whatever, but. I think some of these WikiLeaks actually came from the FBI and to WikiLeaks, and I think they're fed up with the corruption, with the ties Comey has with the Clintons and the military machine, and I'm kind of worried how that will affect Trump because I think he's in. I'm not overconfident, but I think he's in. But I think that military-industrial complex. I think will come back will put a lot of pressure on him, and I wanted to. Well,
they will definitely they'll put a lot of pressure on him, but Trump is an outsider, and they've been treating him like an outsider all along, going all the way back to when he first declared, and there was literally these media got organized to bury him, to get rid of him. They attacked him at every one of the conventions. He's a reactionary president. And I think that person who described him as a giant middle finger by the American people to the establishment, that's a really good image. Because Trump is an outsider. He's got his own money. He can't be bought. He can't be bribed. He's not for sale. And he's going to try and do the job the way he thinks it needs to be done. Now, everybody is going to start courting him. In fact, all of a sudden over in Israel, they're out there saying, oh, we believe in Trump. He'll be the greatest friend for Israel. So Israel's hedging their bets. And now that it looks like he might actually pull this off and that Hillary is about to go down in flames, everybody's going to be jumping on board. Oh, I'm your best friend. I knew all along it was going to be you. And, you know I said some bad things a little while ago, but now I'm being really nice to you. And they're going to suck up to him as hard as they can. And that's just the nature of the dynamics of power. But again, if Trump wins the White House, and it's looking more and more like he's going to, that's not going to be the end. It's going to be the beginning, because there's a long, long way to go to get this nation back to being a true republic with a democratically elected government. There are so many problems to solve, and we're all going to have to solve them. What we're going to have is President Trump looking over our shoulders and making it okay for us to make those changes, as opposed to the previous regimes which have blocked us at every single turn. So we got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're going to go back to the callers. John in St. Petersburg. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? John, there you are.
Charles in St. Pete.
Charles in St. Petersburg. It's not even my mistake, but we apologize. What's on your mind?
As the Hillary and Obama, I think the establishment at Bilderberg in Chantilly, Virginia in 2008, according to, I remember Alex Jones was there, and Jim Tucker from the American Free Press were there, and I remember they, according to Alex Jones, and I get the American Free Press too, they hadn't really decided. They decided at that meeting of the Bilderbergers in Chantilly, Virginia, which is in D.C., Washington, D.C., that Obama would be the president, and she wouldn't be, then she would have to wait her turn. And,
there's a lot of groups exerting influence over the U.S. elections. Israel certainly does. The Bilderbergers do. The Council on Foreign Relations does. And certainly we cannot discount the fact that the Central Intelligence Agency has been a major force in choosing who rules over us, going all the way back to just after the John F. Kennedy years.
Oh, long before that. They're the Praetorian Guard. I think when they were the OSS, they were in 1942. The OSS existed, I think, even before it officially was created. But anyway, about the email, of course, that Hillary's email, one of the emails that she was in penance to Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, and Hillary was begging her pardon. Can you pardon me now? In one of the emails that was released, I read that on the Truth Seeker blog that was from the United Kingdom. It's called the Truth Seeker.
Well, that's the thing about money junkies. They worship anybody with more money than they have. They'll bow and grovel and scrape and abase themselves.
Yeah, she was groveling. She was definitely groveling to her, according to the letter.
Yes.
To the email, the Wikipedia. So I think she was supposed to get it this time, but I guess it. But I hope.
Well, I know it was supposed to be Hillary's turn.
Obama and her and all of them go down in flames.
Well, I would like to see that as well. It may have been Hillary's turn, but we, the American people, have cut the line ahead of her, and we're proud of it. What can I tell you? The Oval Office isn't a prize or a promotion. It's not an inevitability. None of those offices are guaranteed to anybody except those that we decide should be there.
Did you know? I read one email that had a thing from George Bush to Barack Obama before he was elected. This was in like November 4th. He was still not even the president designate, and already Bush is calling him in the email the president designate and suggesting he should be in his cabinet. We always think that W was against Obama. He was told to have Obama as his successor.
No. You're misunderstands what's going on. Hang on. Let me respond, because you said something that is a little bit of a distortion. What's going on? Remember what I said before about the dynamics of power. Okay, all of these candidates, as soon as they declare, they're being chased by people who want to be part of their government, their cabinet, some official, some job everywhere. I mean, Donald Trump, if you're listening, I want head of NASA. And that's just going to happen. And people are literally betting their future career that the person they're working for is going to be elected so that they can get that promotion. And that is generally the motive for these people in the inner circle to commit these illegal actions. It's not because they support Hillary Clinton or whoever. It's because they see an opportunity to advance themselves to positions of greater wealth and power by helping this candidate get in there. And so Obama was leading in the polls going into the election of 2008. So, of course, everybody's going to be writing him and saying, hey, I want a job, I'm a great person, I know this, I know that, and I'm the best person for the position. That's just part of what happens when you're running for office, and it looks like you're going to win.
They happen to be related to each other, right?
The Clintons...
They just happen to be cousins and related to the
Hang on again. The Clintons and the Bushes are an hereditary duopoly, and they go back to that CIA gun and drug running operation in the mid-1980s that became known as the Iran-Contra scandal. And the plan was to have the Oval Office as an hereditary right of the Clintons and the Bushes, to pass it off from Clinton to Bush to Bush to Clinton to Bush, to make it still look like there was some kind of a choice for the American people. Now, Obama succeeded in getting on the inside, but he was willing to play along with the CIA's games and not rock the boat. Donald Trump is completely different. I'm willing to bet, even at this late date, that Donald Trump doesn't understand the connection between the corruption he's dealing with today with the Clintons and its ties all the way back to the Iran-Contra gun and drug running scandal, and even before that, the heroin pouring into this country from Vietnam. And he'd better study up on it real quick so that he understands what he's dealing with, because he's catching on and he's learning quickly and he's got some really good advisors, but he's still as naive going into the job of president as Jimmy Carter was, and look how he got blindsided by that. Anyway, we're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining us right now. We're taking phone calls and talking about politics here. Charles, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, it's not what I really wanted to talk about, but it's what you said. I think this goes back to at least the murder of JFK, where the CIA was involved. But anyway, and probably before that. But a lot of entities
were involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. You have got to break yourself of the habit of thinking that there is a single causative agent behind history's events, whether it's a war or an assassination. Basically, wars and assassinations never happen for just one reason. They happen when you have a group of people who have their own individual agendas, but they just happen to be solvable by the war and the assassination. In the case of John F. Kennedy, you had the CIA was angry with him because of the betrayal of the Bay of Pigs and Kennedy's threat to break the CIA up. You had Israel hated John F. Kennedy because he wanted to block them from getting nuclear weapons. You had the Texas oil billionaires hated John F. Kennedy because of the oil depletion allowance. You had organized crime who were angry with John F. Kennedy because they had helped him steal the election from Richard Nixon. And then John F. Kennedy had appointed Robert Kennedy, his attorney general, and said, go after organized crime. And basically, all of these the Federal Reserve was angry with Kennedy for Executive Order 11110. and they were all angry with Kennedy for different reasons, but they all agreed the solution to their problem was Kennedy should die, so Kennedy died, and you were told it was this crazed lone nut guy in the book depository. We're going to do a shout-out to our affiliates. Oh, I already did that. Never mind. Let's continue.
All right. But, Mike, what I really wanted to talk to you about is I just turned you on when I got home. I have this theory, I don't know if maybe you covered it or not, that what's happening is Comey sees that jig is up. It looks like Trump might win anyway.
Yes.
And I think he knows he's guilty of criminal behavior, that he's not only facing, losing his job as FBI director, but he's facing possible indictment himself. And I think Trump is going to put in a tough prosecutor. He's going to put somebody like a Giuliani or a Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy's already at the top of the list. And, Comey has to resign himself to the fact that he's not going to be director of the FBI past the beginning of next year. Now he's thinking, how does he avoid prosecution for obstruction of justice or just having total incompetent boob by his name on the resume under FBI?
Yeah, well, I think he's more worried about going to jail because even this incompetent boob, some law firm will still hire him.
Unfortunately, you're right, and that tells you all you need to know about the law firms.
Right. So I'm not, but the thing is, or maybe you can go back to SBC Bank or something like that. But that's not what he's worried about. He's worried about getting his butt in prison. That's what he's thinking about.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that, what you're saying about, we talked about JFK, what happened to him. I just pray that Donald Trump is going to have the best possible security. And I'm not talking about the Secret Service. He's got the money. He had his own guards before, but he has to do better than that.
I agree. I agree here because he could still be assassinated before the election. He could be assassinated afterwards because I'm sure Pence would be a lot more easy to control in the eyes of the powers that be. It's a long way from here to the inauguration, and a Hillary flameout would solidify things, but it still doesn't guarantee Trump's safety. He's going to have to be very careful. And for all we know, over this weekend, we could have a busload of nuns explode somewhere so that by Monday, the new FBI investigation and the WikiLeaks are back off the corporate media. I mean, everything's in play right now, and certainly Hillary's people have to be in a blind panic, not just losing the election, but looking at jail time for what they've been doing. I imagine the ashtrays are flying over at Hillary's campaign headquarters right now.
You also got to look for them to dig up another gold-digging slut somewhere that might try to, lie about Trump,
Oh, they're already lined up around the block for their 15 minutes of TV fame.
Mm-hmm. So, but that's about the only chance he has. But other than that, like I said, he needs to have the best security. He has the money to pay each guard a good $300,000-400,000 a year, which would probably be I'm sure is way more than a Secret Service agent, and to hire the best possible. I'm talking about former special ops, but not special ops that are still tied into the government that are really patriots. So those are the type of people he should be hiring.
I agree. He needs a multiple layered defense made up of layers that are independent of each other, which is what he did earlier on. Secret Service, and then inside that, his own private security, maybe even 2 layers of that. I'm sure by now Trump has to know, he's a target for many of the same reasons John F. Kennedy was a target.
He also needs really good computer security experts, because including, how with his plane and everything else, and he should even consider hiring a guy like you, who is a computer expert, and, because you would probably know what to look for, because there's no telling what they might try. And like I said, they could try to, anytime he gets in that plane, even now.
Can I be blunt here? At the risk of sounding like an egomaniac here, I'm open to a job in the Trump administration, but not as a computer technician. I'm aiming at a somewhat higher pay grade, okay? All right. Listen, I got to let you go. We got a bunch of callers waiting on the line here, and we're going to go to Rick in Nevada. Aloha, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, kudos to Marcus Mumford, the attorney for Ammon Bundy,
yes.
First of all, for helping secure those acquittals of all counts for all of those folks. And cheers to the judge who said, oh, we're going to hold on to Ryan and Ammon Bundy, though, for Nevada. Now, the other attorney for Ammon Bundy, Morgan Philpott, says that the government does not have the authority to turn him over to Nevada. What's your take, first of all? And second of all, is there some kind of a convoy that ought to be provided for the Bundys to get back to get Ammon back to Idaho, an actual physical convoy?
Well, I think this issue is going to resolve itself very shortly all by itself. The only reason to keep these two in prison is to keep them quiet, because with the acquittal of all those people up in Oregon of all charges, okay, this is going to put that Uranium One deal back into play in the political discussions. And that is another blow that Hillary is not going to be able to withstand, so they're trying to keep that quieted down. That judge should have let them go because the charges back in Nevada are equally bogus, and you're right. One state does not, I think, have the right to hold prisoners on behalf of another state. Now, they could surrender to officials from that from Nevada and everything, but that's a technicality we don't need to go into. What this is all about, everybody involved in these prosecutions was on the inside of this land snatch deal, whether it was the development down in Nevada with Harry Reid or the Uranium One deal. They're all dirty with it, and now just like everybody in Hillary's campaign, they're all of a sudden realizing this could blow up into a scandal that puts their own sorry rear end into prison. And anybody who's been a judge knows if they get sent to prison, they get a really, really hard time at the hands of the prison population. And their only alternative is to be in protective custody, which is just one step above solitary confinement.
Hey, Mike, thank you. And before I get out of here, I'd just like to suggest that we fit dingy Harry Reid for a noose.
Well, again, you know, the way to really hurt a money junkie is to take away all their money and make them live like an ordinary poor American. They're more afraid of that than they are of prison or execution. And so, again, find the appropriate RICO statute, take Harry Reid to court, and strip him of his wealth and return it to the taxpayers.
Works for me. Thanks, Mike.
All righty. And we're going to switch over to Sheldon in Wisconsin. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Sheldon, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
I have a quick question for you. You know, I'm African American. And I was listening to your show about 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to touch on your topic, your main topic about the politics. But I'm going to ask you a quick question before I actually a quick question about the politics. Now, I was listening to your show 3 weeks ago, and I had a group of friends of mine sit along, and you made a comment that says that African Americans are better off in slavery. Can you comment on that?
Okay, could you repeat that? We've got a really, really bad phone connection, and I'm not sure if I misheard you or you may have misheard me again, but what was it you think I said?
You said that African Americans are better off in slavery.
No, I didn't say that. I said the descendants of the slaves here in America are better off than the descendants of the Africans who were not enslaved who are still in Africa, and I think that's accurate.
Well, I mean, for a bunch of African Americans that's listening to your show, and we're trying to grab hold onto you, that kind of threw us for a loop. So can you clarify that? And then I just want to ask you one 5-second question about politics.
All right, let me, take a look at the standard of living of the black population here in the United States of America, and I don't mean the celebrities like Bill Cosby and rock stars and sports figures, but just the average.
People who sold you're not talking about people who sold their souls, so go ahead.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with this phone, but I'm having a real hard... Let me finish the thought here, okay? Look at the quality of life of your average black American, middle class, and then compare it to the current standard of living of the black population still living in Africa. And you will find the standard of living is a lot higher here in the United States. Even people who are in Africa are out there saying, we don't understand what the blacks in America are complaining about. They're so much better off. And that's the point I was trying to make.
Okay, I get you on that one. But the only people who are better off are the athletes and entertainers who sold their souls to Jewish people.
Oh, okay. I heard you that time. I don't want to get into sell your souls because this is not a religious program. But no, hang on. Let me, my point. Okay, I'm not talking about the athletes and the sports stars and the entertainers. I'm talking about black Americans who own garages, or they have a small little restaurant downtown, or they have some other little small business and they're hiring within their own community. Because they're doing very well compared to the people who are still in Africa in places like Zimbabwe.
Okay. Now, in terms of politics,
okay, Sheldon, I'm sorry. We just ran out of time here. I'm going to have to let you go. It's a bad phone connection anyway. We'll be back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And before we go back to the phones here, a couple of quick stories here. The State Department and Associated Press worked with the Hillary Clinton State Department, worked with Hillary herself to cover up and spin the Benghazi investigation findings. This is another leaked Podesta email. So the State Department was engaged in a cover-up. Hillary was engaged in a cover-up. The Associated Press was cooperating in the cover-up. And this is why the corporate media is sweating bullets right now. When Hillary Clinton goes down, they're going to be taken down with her for all that they did. All right, Kenny in Florida. Aloha, Kenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. What's on your mind?
Alrighty. I'm over here in Orange County, Florida, and I looked at my sample ballot, and I noticed that a lot of the local races, they have a Democrat running, but they don't have a Republican. I mean, I understand that happens now and then. Some races have only a Republican, but there's a lot of them. There's state attorney, a Democrat and a write-in. State senator, Democratic and write-in. Clerk of the courts, there's a Democrat and a nonpartisan. And sheriff has a Republican and Democrat. Property appraised.
Okay, what's the point? What's the point? Get to the point here.
All right. That's just a lot more than normal to have only a Democrat candidate running and no Republican. And I'm wondering if it's elections, if there's some sort of election fraud, or if you've encountered anything like that. And I will add that. I did early vote yesterday, and everything seemed on the up and up.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Is your local community primarily Democratic?
That I'm not sure. That could be a possibility.
I would think that's the possibility because, it does take a lot of work and a lot of money to mount a campaign, even for a small local office. And it may be that if your neighborhood has a history of voting Democratic, that people are just saying, it's just going to be a waste of time and money to try and run on the Republican side. I'm not going to bother. And it does happen a lot at the local races where there's only one candidate going in. And it's not uncommon for the deadline for registering for an election to draw close and not have any candidates for these offices. And the local party will be running around saying, come on, we just need to put your name on the ballot is all. And I think over in Europe there was this heavy metal music star put his name on the ballot as a joke and won, and now he's stuck doing the job for the next 2 years. All right, well, Kenny, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Steve in California. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Steve, are you there? I guess not. Okay. Steve, are you there? All right, let's go to Martin in California. Martin, are you there?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. What's going on?
Yeah, I wanted to call. I was so happy and overjoyed about the Bundy acquittal yesterday. I think everybody in our Patriot community should just be on cloud nine over this. A friend of mine, she lives in Council, Idaho, the town where Jack Ennis was killed, and the way she put it, this would not have happened 10 years ago. And constitutionalists, patriots, our time has come, Mike. And this is a classic case of jury nullification because they did have guns. They did occupy the space. It's so beautiful. And I think you and the independent media had actually a role in this because as public knowledge base of the general public becomes aware of all these federal tyrannies, they are more likely to participate in further jury nullification. So I actually think let's not underscore the power of the independent media, all your information, all the bloggers and everybody who publishes top information. It's affecting the world, Mike. I think it really is.
Yeah, it really is. People are finding out, and they're beginning to understand that in a courtroom, that jury is the highest authority, even above the judge. And we have a jury system because the Founding Fathers recognized prosecutors can be ambitious and reckless, judges can be corrupt, and that's why the final authority is that jury to decide if the law has been broken or if the law itself is unjust and should be ignored. And they do have that right. We got to take a break for commercials.
One more thing.
Going to have to hold over the commercial break. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, I want to get a couple more stories in here. This problem with election machines that are switching Trump votes to Hillary has now been reported in Maryland. It's all over the place, but everybody who complains forces them to pull back, reprogram the machines to be honest, and act like it was never a big deal in the first place. It's all a calibration error. That's all it is. It's a calibration. All of these machines in all of these states, they've all got poor calibration. That's really all it is, nothing to see here. When was the last time you had to recalibrate your desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone? Calibration went out with analog circuitry. This isn't a calibration issue. This is programmed in. They were just hoping people would go on in, punch, 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 and done, and not look at the end result. And everybody's looking. And that may be one of the reasons why that the early voting numbers were a lot stronger for Trump than certainly Hillary's campaign were predicting. And that may have been the catalyst for why all of a sudden the FBI is back investigating the email server and the corporate media is reporting on the Clinton Inc. scandals. I think they just hit the old panic button here. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go back to Martin in California. You had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, in addition to the 7 who were acquitted yesterday, there actually were 11 people who actually already pled guilty, Mike. They, as is often the case, they were scared and pressured into pleading guilty. So 11 have already pled guilty. That's very unfortunate. In addition, there's 7 more defendants who are going on trial in the mid-February, about February 14th. Mm-hmm. So this is not completely over. The Bundys are the well-known guys, but there's 7 other ones, Mike, who are facing trial from the same occupation of the wildlife refuge. February 14th, I happen to be acquainted with one of them. His name is Jason Patrick, and he's a great guy. People can actually Google his Facebook page because he gives a lot of updates that aren't really too well known. So Jason Patrick is one of the 7 who he's posting about. He's very thankful that his friends were acquitted, but his mid-February. And final thing, a lot of people don't remember, in Waco, after the Waco massacre in 1994, all of the Branch Davidians who were tried on murder charges were acquitted.
Yes.
And they were tried, and that's when people can Google Los Angeles Times, Waco defendants acquitted. And a lot of people, that's very underemphasized or unknown, that they actually were tried, charged, and acquitted. And I've been to
there was no evidence there's no evidence there'd been any shooting from inside that church going out. The photos of all the bullet holes show the shooting was on the outside going in. The only firearms that were still present were ones that were not working. All the working guns were out at a gun show being sold. That's how the Branch Davidians funded themselves. And they're still in the armory, and the roof of the armory is burned and collapsed down on the guns. And that's why they were acquitted. I think those people in Oregon who pled guilty have cause now, based on the not guilty verdicts in the trial here, to have their lawyers file for a new trial, a motion for a new trial. They'll probably get it. And, I think at this point, the push is going to be to bury this whole thing very quickly before it rips the lid off Uranium One worse than it's already out there. Because now you've got an American people, scandals are like Chinese food. You have one and 30 minutes later you want another one. And so now you got the American people and they've got Clinton Inc. and they've got the emails and stuff and they're going to be saying, ooh, that uranium one, that smells kind of good. Let's go have a taste of that one.
Right.
Claire's laughing in the other room here.
Time for Chinese food.
Yes.
The 15 informants that was admitted during the trial, that 15 federal informants that were involved in this operation. Ridiculous. By the way, one last thing, I'll let you go. I've been to the Brass Davidian compound near Waco, and they do actually have a memorial to the 4 slain feds. So they were not bad people. They have a memorial to the 4 killed officers on the property along somewhere near the other memorial for the victims. So that was interesting.
Well, those 4 slain federal officers, if I recall correctly, were former bodyguard Secret Service agents for Bill Clinton, who for some reason were transferred down there to Waco just before that all went down. And the autopsy was they were shot at close-range execution style. I wonder what it was they knew about the Clintons. In fact, they are on the dead bodies list. Anyway, Martin.
Good work.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Martin. We're going to switch over to Scott in Norfolk. Aloha, Scott. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I have 2 subjects. First, Donna Brazile, and then second, the flag protest.
Yes.
When you look at Donna Brazile and her latest comments and think that she's head of one of our major parties and this is a face of globalism, it's just confounding that someone who's not that bright can be in such a position of power. And what was your...
Anybody who has any intelligence is going to say, I don't want that job. It's a red carpet to a prison sentence.
No, her denials were so unbelievable, and her performance. She doesn't come across as a very smart person.
No.
I remember when she was Gore's campaign manager, I thought, this woman has zero charisma. She doesn't come off as very intelligent. How is she? She can't really be the campaign manager. She must be the face of it, My other subject is these flag protests, and I've had some coworkers, blindly say that these flag protesters are traitors. I asked a few of them. They're highly educated. One's a CPA. I said, "Do you know where our flag came from?" He said, "No, not." I said, "Do you know where the Pledge of Allegiance came from?" "No." So you say it all the time, but you don't know where it comes from. I said, "You know where it comes from? It comes from a guy named Francis Bellamy."
Yes.
Who was more socialist than Bernie Sanders.
And do you remember the original? Do you remember the original Bellamy salute to the flag? Was the arm raised up like this? And it wasn't until the Nazis copied that gesture that it went to being the hand over the heart. I'm not kidding you. The original way that children were taught to pledge allegiance to the flag was to give what is today called the Nazi salute.
That's it. They got it from us.
Yes.
And they stopped doing it 7 days after the Pearl Harbor attacks.
Yes.
That's when they stopped doing it. And Francis Bellamy came up with the Pledge of Allegiance because he and his brothers wanted to increase flag sales to schools. Normally, most schools just had one flag outside the building.
Yes.
If they could find a way to get flags in each classroom, they could, 10 to 20 times the sales. But they needed a way to do it, and the Pledge of Allegiance was the way to do it, because you couldn't get all those kids out in the front yard to do a Pledge of Allegiance, not if it's a rainy day or if there's too many kids.
Yeah.
None of these people know this.
I know.
And here's the origins of the flag. Now, we're led to believe that 2 of the entities that early colonists hated the most was the British Empire and the British East India Company.
Yes.
Now, if you pull up the British East India Company flag, which was established in 1600, none of that history makes sense. If you pull that up, you'll be shocked. It is basically our flag. We have a company flag right now, and most Americans don't even know it.
Well, we'll take a look at that.
Most Americans were loyal to their states, not to a federal government far, far away with a federal government flag. But if you pull up British East India Company flag and take a look at that, that will make you question everything you've ever learned.
Wait a minute. That's the naval jack of Great Britain. And yes, that's where they got the red and the white stripes, but I'm not seeing that it's that close. Anyway, listen, our phone lines are full. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to need to let you go here. But I'm looking at the flag right now, and it's the standard British naval ensign. And a lot of people copied it. Vancouver copied it. We even copied it here in Hawaii in the early years. So we're going to switch to Steve in California. Steve, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Okay, Steve.
Hillary's speech. Am I there?
Yeah, well, you are now. You were cut off in the beginning. Please start over.
Yeah, I sent you an email of an excerpt from a Hillary speech back in 2005 or 2006 where she made in Israel talking about the Palestinian elections, that if they were to allow them, they made a mistake, that they should have intervened and made sure they, basically in so many words, made the outcome the way they the desired outcome.
Rigged the election. Yes, he was talking about rigging the election.
So I sent that to you. If you want to send that, maybe put that on your website. That's interesting.
Somebody already beat you to it. Somebody already beat you to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so elections can be rigged elsewhere, but not in the United States, I guess.
Well, I don't think that that's any hard and fast rule. In fact, one of the reasons we're in the mess that we're in is over the last couple of decades, the Central Intelligence Agency has taken all these regime change skills they've been honing in other countries, and they've brought them back home.
Right.
Okay?
Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Trying to swap all these mosquitoes hitting me, Mike.
Need to get a mosquito zapper.
New Jersey, you know.
Yeah, mosquito zapper and a six-pack, that's quality entertainment.
Hey, Mike, that you had that Sheldon guy call. Watch movies Amazing Grace, Amistad, and Hotel Rwanda. And remember, the Clinton Foundation was founded in 1997. The Clintons didn't do anything. The Bushes, nobody did anything about what was going on in Rwanda.
No.
Look at the millions of people that died there with machete. I knew somebody, I worked with somebody, the machetes, Mike, I mean, it was a bloodbath.
Yes.
Nobody cared. The UN is a joke. You know, look at the UN now. They kicked Russia off and they put Saudi Arabia, the head choppers, in charge of human rights.
It is a bit of a joke.
Insane, Mike. The UN is crap. The UN is sold off, sold out. They're part of the West. They're all bought and paid for, told what to do. You know that, right?
Yes.
And Mike, it's sick. These people are sick. Human rights for Saudi Arabia. The flag matches ISIS flag. My God. I mean, can anybody see that? You know, it's a bizarre. Hey, Mike, on Hillary Clinton with the FBI coming out right now. I mean, oh yeah, this wouldn't happen 11 days from the election. So something's going on here. You know, otherwise it'd be, you know, pushed under the rug until a later date. So,
no,
you know,
I think what happened is the early voting numbers came on in, and it's overwhelmingly going to Donald Trump, despite all the illegal immigrants who are voting, and the dead who are voting, and all the Democrats who are voting multiple times. They even caught a nun voting multiple times for Hillary Clinton. I don't know why the nuns all seem to like her, but we have this nun that is at one of the churches. We support the food program, and she saw the Hillary for Prison T-shirt. And she playfully took a swing at me, didn't actually connect, but still, this is a nun with the fist coming at you. So, but I think the early voting numbers came on in and just made it very, very clear that Hillary Clinton is not going to win the election. She's not going to be able to protect all these people who have broken the law to support her and protect her and move her campaign along. She's certainly not going to be in a position to keep all these promises that she's been making to people, and now everybody has gone into survival mode, whether it's James Comey, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the corporate media. They're all thinking how to salvage what's left of their careers and reputations between now and the end of January next year.
And Mike, on one of your other callers, we're not America anymore. We're a United States empire. We're Rome, Soviet Union, and the British Empire all rolled into one. We are an empire of death and destruction. That's what we are.
Yes.
You know, it's up to the people to say enough of this crap.
Okay, we just had a loud noise come through here. All right, Dustin, I'm going to let you go. We've got so many callers, and we're coming to the top of the hour, and the Lady Claire is going to join us. We're going to switch over to Andy in Texas. Aloha, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Hey, I just wanted to give you a little update here in Texas. Evidently, it's you can't wear any kind of shirt that is politically suggestive to go vote now, and I'm guessing that's because so many Donald Trump shirts showed up. Everybody's wearing red. They're doing everything they're supposed to do, but they had a whole piece on the local news here about, no, this is not allowed. And it's up to the precinct leader there to decide whether or not. But that's not the reason I called.
Okay, well, before you go any further, I can understand them saying you cannot wear a campaign T-shirt into the polling place. But if they start saying you can't wear red, that's across the line. That's a First Amendment violation right there.
Well, they haven't actually come across and said that. But the real reason I called you is I just want to give you major kudos, dude. Without people like you, and you know who else I'm talking about, you know the major players in this media thing, you guys have done a phenomenal job of just exposing this witch that wants to be our president. And, I get chills down my back thinking about how well and how hard you guys have done what you're doing, man. And this is straight up from the heart of a true American. You have done a fantastic job, and I think everybody needs to hear that over the airwaves. And you know what? A lot of you guys just don't want to be thanked at all. You're like, no, it's my job. This is what I do. No, you need to be thanked. You guys are the people that saved America, because right now we got this investigation reopened, and this is the beginning of the end for her. And thank God you people were there to do this. And so I just want to give you a heartfelt thanks, my friend.
Well, thank you for the very, very kind words. And, the reason we don't talk about, ourselves a lot is we're not the story, we're not the focus, and we can't be. You start going down that path of thinking that you're something special, and it can very quickly go overboard. I saw that so many times when I was in Hollywood, and so I work at that. And I'm not saying that somewhere in the back of my head, there isn't a dream that someday somebody will make a statue to me and pigeons of the world shall rejoice. But it really is staying focused, and it's part of this ongoing process, good against evil, truth against lies. I think the real thank goodness, though, has to go to the availability of the Internet, because that's what really changed the dynamic and allowed those of us to get on out there and challenge the orthodoxy and the establishment and the corporate media. And I think if Trump does, in fact, win the White House, we're going to start seeing some major shifts within our societal structure. We're going to start seeing a pullback from this coarse-toward fascism. But again, it won't be the end of the journey. It is merely a waypoint on something that's going to continue for a while. And like I said, if Trump wins the White House, our job is only beginning. It is not ending. So thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. And, boy, we're running out of time here. I'm going to only be able to take one more phone call before the top of the hour. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Coming up on the top of the hour, and the lovely Lady Claire. We're going to go to John in Barbados. John, aloha. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yes. These revelations recent to... I sent you an email about it, how the corporate media was turning on the Clintons in a way that still isn't there yet, but it's like a snowball rolling downhill. But I think the most significant part is this is going to smash the DNC. They're going to have to clean house. And even when they do clean house, are people going to believe all the corruption's gone? I don't think so.
No, it's going to be a long, long time before this country has a population that trusts the political parties and the corporate media. It's going to be a long road back. Trust arrives on foot but departs on horseback. And that's a good... You can spend 100 years putting together a cohesive society where the population trusts the government and the media and corporate interests and everything. One really bad lie can destroy that, literally overnight, and that's where we are right now. Now, if I'm correct, and this is the beginning, if this is the watershed where the establishment has decided they've gone as far as they can go, and it's time to give the American people a big, wet, sloppy kiss and a lot of their money back and make nice. It's still going to be a very, very long task to accomplish.
I mean, way back during the DNC convention, and they put Hillary in there, and I was cheering because I was thinking to myself that, now they're stuck with that witch.
Yes.
They can't change course. And to be honest, she's got more baggage than Boston Logan Airport. And it's all coming out, thanks in part to WikiLeaks and thanks in part to the FBI in making, if you like, nonsense of
Well,
of
Judicial
the law.
Watch, Larry Klayman, DNC emails, various other anonymous groups. I mean, this is a tsunami of rejection of the official story on pretty much everything. WikiLeaks likes to, stand up there and posture and take the credit, but it really has been a grassroots movement all along, and it's a pushback. The American people have just reached the breaking point, and this is our last chance for a peaceful revolution. And if I'm reading the signals correctly, the establishment has said, okay, let's have a peaceful revolution because the alternative is not going to be pleasant for anybody. It's rough on the landscaping, and it's bad for tourism if we have people shooting each other in the streets. So, and again, I think the catalyst, as quickly as this reversal has happened, I think the catalyst was the early voting numbers. And they're realizing that Hillary's claims of potential election victory were as fictitious as pretty much anything else coming out of the Clintons, and now everybody is in survival mode. How am I going to come out of this with my business intact, my reputation intact, and avoid jail sentence at the same time? And I think we're going to see a lot more of this next week, unless there's a convenience fault flags. John, thanks an awful lot. We're going to shut you off here to do a station identification. Back with the Lady Claire after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And for those of you watching on BAM User TV, this gorgeous creature sitting behind me is the lovely Lady Claire, finally back in the chair for the third hour of Friday. And Lady Love, what is your first story?
Well, while we have been watching the Clinton campaign kind of implode with today's news, apparently the U.S. State Department is threatening consequences for Syrian chemical weapons use.
We're going to wag our fingers at you good and hard.
Russia is unconvinced by UN report.
So am I.
And if cyber attacks are not enough to get the American people behind war with Russia, then the State Department has definitely gone back to its old playbook.
Yeah, and here it is. I mean, they have been caught lying to us about Syria's chemical weapons so many times.
Yeah.
And they're out here saying, yes, we lied before about all this stuff, but really this one time, honest, you can believe us this time. This time we really, really mean it, and we're telling you the truth. And I think at this point, probably most Americans are just sitting there saying, do you realize when you lie to us this many times about the same thing, that we see it as an insult, that we are sick and tired of being treated like morons.
And Mike, what I would have to say is, forgive me, but this is so 2013 by the UN when Obama was accusing Bashar al-Assad of using chlorine gas against his own people, just as the UN team had landed in Damascus, and then it was documented incontrovertibly that it was Syrian rebels, not Assad's people.
Yeah, it was
sarin.
sarin. It was sarin, not chlorine gas. I mean, chlorine gas is very easy to make.
Yeah.
But again, they're going back to the same thing. They're thrashing around and he's using chemical weapons on his own people, blah 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 blah. I saw another report about how the U.S. is screaming about how close Russian and U.S. aircraft are coming to each other over Syria, and this should not be happening. And in a way, they're right, because Russia is supposed to be there, the United States is not.
Right.
And that is really the position the U.S. is pushing, that everybody understands is completely bogus. The United States does not have any legal right to be anywhere inside Syria.
No.
Russia does. The Syrian government invited Russia in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the U.S. is sort of trying to convince you that we have, through manifest destiny, the right to go anywhere on the planet, and nobody will oppose us, or we'll call the Death Star down and lay waste to them.
Yeah, something like that. And what it looks to me has happened is that what the UN has been told to do, by the U.S., is to bypass standard investigative standards to achieve such an end in this report. In other words, come up with something that the United States wanted to see happen. But the ramifications of sanctioning on Syria for this, it's insane. And the Russians are saying they don't see any evidence.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
And what's really ridiculous is for the U.S. to go back and do this after they have been caught lying so many times. But at this point, I'm sure from the war planners' point of view, they're out of options.
Yeah.
They need to figure out some way that they can invade Syria, make it look like it's Syria or Russia's fault, and they think that you, the American people, are actually stupid enough to fall for that.
And there's the rub.
Yeah, and there's the rub here.
Oh, and by the way, Russia has just been kicked off the UN Human Rights Council, and Saudi Arabia has been elected to it. Good old, humane, compassionate Saudi Arabia. Mike, I don't know what they're smoking over there, but it's got to be something pretty intense.
It's got to be pretty good.
Yeah. I'd like to go over to the financial world now.
Probably the CIA brought it in.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Moody's is now warning that Deutsche Bank is dangerously close to falling below its default point.
Yes.
And it issued a very damning verdict on Deutsche Bank earlier this week in a research report that was put together by the credit agency's Analytics Research Division. Moody's analysts write that Deutsche Bank expected default frequency at one of the highest levels in the banking industry, despite the bank's efforts to shore up its capital position. Now, to me, this fragile situation when it comes to the banking industry is the canary in the financial or economic coal mine. If Deutsche Bank goes down, it's going to bring the world banking system with it, including exposure to, what is it, honey, trillions in derivatives?
Well, there's the derivatives crisis. There's the fact that Deutsche Bank is cross-connected with the European Central Bank. There's exposure through Deutsche Bank to IMF, World Bank, and it really is this network. And whenever one of these major banks goes down, it can trigger a domino effect.
Yep.
And I think the fact that the Moody's report is the reason why our markets took a little bit of a major hiccup in the middle of the day. But the plunge protection team got in there and got it all back into the green so the money junkies can have another nice, relaxing weekend, because we can't have the money junkies worried about their money. I mean, that's just not, that cannot be allowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and in the midst of Hillary's email gate, FBI is now being sued over records of Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch's meeting on that tarmac. Apparently, Judicial Watch has filed an FOIA for documents that include all records related to the meeting between Attorney General Lynch and former President Bill Clinton on 27 June of this year. Bill Clinton and Lynch met privately on a Phoenix tarmac in the final days of the email election probe after they said that their jets unexpectedly landed near to each other. While both parties claimed the meeting was purely social in nature, their visit sparked a backlash among critics who accused Bill Clinton of attempting to tilt the investigation in favor of his wife.
My understanding was that Bill Clinton kept his plane on the ground for something like 40 minutes, knowing that Loretta Lynch's plane was coming on in. And they didn't actually have their meeting standing on the tarmac. They had it inside Loretta Lynch's government aircraft, which is why everything they said is technically supposed to be a public record. We're going to take a second here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates. Rejoining the network, the second voice you're hearing on the radio is the lovely Lady Claire.
Aloha.
And we're talking about all this sort of corruption. So the FBI is being sued for all the records related to this meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, and I don't know why they're suing. We pretty much understand what was said. Let Hillary go, or we're going to have you killed. You're going to wind up dead in Fort Marcy Park. Nice airplane you got here, Loretta. It'd be a shame if it crashed.
And what I said to that the meeting was social in nature, Social in nature, my astrolabe. Bill Clinton simply made Lynch an offer she couldn't refuse in terms of attempting to ensure that Hillary wouldn't get recommended for indictment. And whether it was a physical threat to her or her family or some kind of bribe, we will never know. But, Mike, now that the FBI is reopening the case regarding Hillary's emails, and Lynch apparently at this point is impotent to stop this, it will be very interesting to see where this goes in the next couple of weeks.
It will be very interesting, but as far as the election is concerned, the damage is done because politics is perception, and the reopening of this investigation has only underscored there's some kind of a cover-up going on here. Now, whatever was said between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, her crew on her aircraft reported that immediately after Bill Clinton left, she was sweating profusely on an air-conditioned aircraft.
Okay.
And the idea is that Loretta Lynch could still, as head of the Department of Justice, refuse to accept an FBI recommendation for a prosecution of Hillary. But again, at this point, everybody is seeing it's nothing but cover-up. And I think the reason the cover-up is so wide-ranging and big, if I am correct, is that Hillary Clinton was repeating the 1996 Chinagate scandal. She was selling U.S. secrets to foreign interests using her weak email server to deliver the goods and her so-called charitable foundation to collect and launder the money. And everybody who was part of it, everybody who knew it was going on and did nothing about it, is basically an accessory to espionage and treason.
Absolutely.
And that's why they're all in a panic to keep the lid on this thing.
Oh, I certainly understand that. And with this and something else I'm going to be bringing up shortly, I almost wouldn't be surprised if Loretta Lynch started getting very depressed.
Well, no, she's not going to get depressed until she starts to try and actually do her job, and then she's going to get really depressed. Really quickly. But as long as she refuses to do her job, then her life expectancy is going to be very pleasing to whoever sold her life insurance policy.
Okay, and we've got another little interesting hiccup on Loretta Lynch. Attorney General Lynch is pleading the Fifth Amendment on what went down at that secret Iran ransom for cash payments. Loretta Lynch is declining to comply with an investigation by leading members of Congress about the Obama administration's secret efforts to send Iran $1.7 billion in cash earlier this year, prompting accusations that Loretta Lynch had pleaded the Fifth in this case, and to avoid incriminating herself over these payments. According to lawmakers and communications obtained by the Washington Free Beacon, Senator Mark Rubio and Senator Mike Pompeo initially presented Lynch in October with a series of questions about just how that cash payment to Iran was approved and delivered. In a response on 24 October, Assistant Attorney General Peter Katzik responded on Lynch's behalf, refusing to answer the questions and informing the lawmakers that they are barred from publicly disclosing any details about the cash payment, which was bound up in a ransom deal aimed at freeing several American hostages from Iran. So here we have even more evidence, as though thinking Americans needed more, that the Obama administration is one of the most corrupt in the history of this country. And I've got a new little nickname for Attorney General Lynch. Lion Loretta, pleading the Fifth in order to block a congressional investigation about money sent to Iran allegedly to free hostages.
Okay, well, here's the deal on that. First of all, if I were a member of Congress, I'd be looking at impeachment charges immediately against Loretta Lynch, and for that matter, James Comey, because they're not doing their job.
No.
But here's something interesting. Remember how Israel screamed bloody murder over the P5+1 deal, screamed bloody murder about letting Iran have its own money back. But did you notice how silent they were about this ransom that freed these 4 Americans?
Okay.
And I think what is obvious here is these 4 Americans were actually Israeli agents. And Israel ordered Obama to get their agents out, and that's
Right.
why Israel didn't complain, and that's why Obama went through all this underhanded cash on a pallet and a forklift delivery of the ransom, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, unmarked bills.
And now Loretta Lynch is having to plead the fifth in order to hide the fact from Congress that Israel was calling foreign policy decisions over at the executive branch, which they're not really supposed to do.
No.
It's a big, ugly, stinking pile of bovine excrement.
Yeah.
And it's kosher, but that's exactly what it is. And it's all starting to unravel.
Yes, that's pretty easy to see. There's another article that I'd like to talk about, and it's a writer for whom I have a great deal of respect by the name of Camille Paglia.
Yes.
And her characterization
I'm
of
glad.
Hillary Clinton is that this woman is a disaster. And in talking about Hillary Clinton, Paglia just got unleashed in this article. And Clinton is saying again and again that her becoming the 45th president of the United States would represent a feminist triumph. And Paglia is saying in order to run for president of the United States, you have to spend 2 or 3 years of your life out on the road constantly asking for money, and most women find that life too harsh, too draining. And she argues that's probably why we haven't had a woman president before. But and she calls Hillary out for using what she called the woman card again and again and again and again. And I would like to hope that everyone who is looking at voting on the 8th looks at voting not on the gender, but on the qualifications. What have they done with their lives? What have they done with creation? You know, and Donald Trump has gone out there, and yes, he's failed a few times, but he understands how to make things work. He understands how to create jobs. He understands all of that. Hillary Clinton, has she ever worked in the private enterprise except for Rose Law Firm? Was she fired after the Watergate incident, by the way?
Yeah, she was fired for ethics violations.
Yeah.
That was her first job in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And then, of course, she flunked the bar in Washington, D.C., which is why she went back to Arkansas with Bill, and that whole thing began here.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're getting all these, you know, hysterical, screaming feminists, you know, the ones who would vote the Manson girls into Congress just because they're women. And they're out there saying, it's time we had a woman president. Like, this is the issue here. And the response to that is, what a shame you pinned your hopes on this particular individual.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's really what it is. We're not opposed to Hillary because she's a woman. We're opposed to Hillary because she's a bad human being.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I am a Christian. I am an equity feminist. Pay me the same as you're going to pay a guy. I am perfectly happy. And I have a real clear understanding of a 12-hour workday. So Mike, more of a 14, 15-hour workday.
Yeah.
But
I'd vote for you for president.
I think I'd vote for our pastor's wife, Becky, for president. She'd be wonderful. Okay. But that aside, let's start developing some women nationally in leadership who are not corrupt that we can all get behind.
Well, wait a minute. Anybody who's not corrupt, male or female, is not going to go anywhere.
Well,
I mean, that's why Linda Lingle, who actually knows the job, was never considered as what's his name, running mate.
McCain's?
McCain,
yeah,
that was it.
Yeah.
Instead, he went with Caribou Barbie, which I think was a major reason his campaign
that was
cratered
painful.
here.
That was painful.
Susan Sarandon. I mean, she's an actress, but she's been a political activist for a long time.
Yeah.
She'd be very, very qualified. The problem is our system excludes the non-corrupt.
Yeah.
Look at how they shoveled Ron Paul out the door, or Cynthia McKinney.
Yep.
They don't want anybody in there to spoil the party. That's why they have been in absolute goose step against Donald Trump. He's not going to go along with this little drug money clique.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mike, I'd sort of like to bop over to the Middle East for a second, if I can.
Sure.
Okay. Apparently, Israel is now imposing 2 hours per week water supply limit on Palestinians. Many West Bank communities are now facing a terrible problem of water shortage.
Yes.
In Saflit, Jenin, and Hebrew governances. And some villages have gone as long as 40 days in a row without running water.
Yes.
And, you know,
a lot of these illegal settlements, they'll literally pump their raw sewage into the water supply of the surrounding Palestinian community. I mean, that's...
Yeah. And, I mean, this is insane. This is going to create disease. It's going to create problems. And because of the way the Israeli occupation and control over the water resources in Palestine exist, this, Michael, is collective punishment. It's a war crime.
Yeah, of course it's a war crime.
Yeah.
Collective punishment is a war crime. And you know how critical water is.
Yeah.
How quickly you can die without water.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting enough water, it can cause all kinds of medical problems.
Mm-hmm.
This continues to go on, and I'm in agreement with those people who say the United Nations is clearly not doing their job.
Yeah.
And you need to remember, Israel's membership at the United Nations had two conditions on it. In fact, Israel is the only nation ever admitted to the United Nations with conditions. One was a Palestinian right of return, and second was if the Palestinians chose not to return to their homes taken from them during the creation of Israel, that Israel would fully compensate them for their lost homes and businesses and properties. Israel has never complied with either one, and yet the United Nations refuses to revoke their membership. And upon what meat doth this our Israel feed, that it hath grown so great?
Yeah.
They are clearly, when you look at this monstrous network of corruption over the whole globe, you look at how they've corrupted our government, the governments of Europe. Israel's obviously the peak of all of that corrupts our planet, including the private central bankers.
Yeah. There is another article that I'd like to refer to from Global Research, a Canadian outlet that puts together some rather thoughtful information.
Okay, we're being asked to provide the actual headline when you read the articles.
Okay. U.S.-Russian war tensions mount over Eastern Europe and Syria. That's the headline.
Mm-hmm.
And defending the deployments in an interview with the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle, the outgoing American...
Oh, we're going to have to take a break for commercials. We've got to sell some product, make some money, pay for all this computer equipment. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, and you wanted to continue on that story.
Yes, from Global Research up in Canada. Apparently, U.S. and Russia war tensions are mounting over Eastern Europe and Syria. And defending the deployments in an interview with the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle, the outgoing American Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Alexander Verschbau, claimed that the U.S.-led alliance had no choice. Russia changed the whole paradigm in 2014 with its aggression against Ukraine, its illegal annexation of Crimea, he said. And that's a barefaced lie. I mean, come on. The crisis in Ukraine was triggered not by aggression on the part of the Kremlin oligarchy, but rather conspiracy of Washington and Berlin to overthrow the elected government in Kiev through the mobilization of violent and right-wing national forces, which the U.S. openly associated themselves with. As Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland bragged that the U.S. had spent $5 billion with a B to further destabilize the Ukrainian regime.
And I'd like to go back. You were talking about Putin and the Russian oligarchy, and you need to understand one of the reasons why the entire world, and especially the United States, is making stink face against Putin is because he rejected the oligarchical system of the Soviet Union, and he's kicked them all out. He's nationalized their wealth. He's taken government control of the private central bank, and it was when he did all of that to turn Russia's public currency into a public utility, that's when Russia went from being good friend and trading partner to the top of the U.S. government's special high interest targets list.
Yes, does not get a Christmas card list. Yeah. And I'd like to turn our attention, and this comes from the Daily Mail from the UK, and apparently Clinton headlined a fundraiser for a campaign group which gave $500,000 to the wife of FBI boss who investigated her emails. How cozy. Yeah.
No corruption is there to see
No
people.
Corruption, no graft.
Oh, it happens all the
Hillary
time here.
Clinton headlined this fundraiser before the group steered nearly $500,000 to the wife of the FBI agent who oversaw the Clinton email investigation. And Common Good VA, a Virginia state PAC run by Clinton's longtime friend and advisor, Terry McAuliffe, its governor, came under scrutiny this week after the Wall Street Journal, none other than, reported that the group donated heavily to the state Senate campaign of Jill McCabe. Her husband, Andrew McCabe, led the FBI investigation into Clinton's emails. And McCabe is still the deputy director of the FBI. He told the Wall Street Journal that he complied with federal ethics rules and was not promoted to lead the Clinton probe until months after his wife's unsuccessful state Senate bid ended. No corruption, nothing to see, walk along, people. I mean, come on. And if he complied with federal ethics rules as he alleges, then those ethic rules have such gaping holes in them that you could drive a truck through them and must be changed.
Well, you know, when with the Clintons, with the foundation, they've got this huge slush fund.
Mm-hmm.
They can preemptively bribe the entire government, and that's what they've done.
Yeah. And there is another very excellent article from a gentleman to whom we link frequently, Steve Ledman, out of Rents.com. And the headline is, Hillary Wants Aggressively Interventionist Foreign Policy. The first bill in Hillary co-presidency included 8 years of Balkan and other wars of aggression. Bush-Cheney exceeded their lawlessness, and Obama outdid the worst of both previous administrations, attacking 7 countries, destabilizing others, orchestrating coups in Honduras, Paraguay, Brazil, and threatening Venezuela, enforcing puppet rule in Haiti, continuing Plan Colombia aid, and responsible for massacres, disappearances, and tortures of regime opponents, including increasingly anti-Sino-Russian policies, risking confrontation with both countries. But with a Hillary presidency, it's going to be worse. Voting for Hillary Clinton is a vote for going back to conscription. This woman is going to be an instrument of death and destruction from the moment she takes office, to appease both her Israeli and corporate masters.
And her globalists.
And her globalists.
And the globalists.
And we've got one of her advisors.
Okay,
we'll take it after the break.
Right.
Yeah.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And Claire, take it away.
Well, I'm very interested in the people surrounding Hillary Clinton right now as advisors. And this was from Rents.com today. Clinton advisor proposes attacking Iran to aid the Saudis in Yemen. Michael Morell is a former acting director of the CIA and a national security advisor to Hillary Clinton, who is widely expected to occupy a senior position in her administration should she win the election. He is also an ardent opponent of the Iran nuclear deal, a defender of waterboarding, and an advocate for making Russia pay a price in Syria by covertly killing Putin's soldiers, as though the Putin military wouldn't know who was killing them. On Tuesday, Morell added another title to that resume, proponent of going to war with Iran for the sake of securing Saudi Arabia's influence in Yemen. And he's talked about a no transportation zone where Iranian ships would get boarded and inspected for weapons and turned around. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry at this, Mike, because any potential act of war against Iran will make Tel Aviv extraordinarily happy, as Israel has always advocated for the U.S. military to destroy their alleged existential threats in the region for them, as we did in Iraq. But, Mike, I am gobsmacked that Morell doesn't realize that such an action will inevitably bring about a U.S. war with Russia. And apparently neither does Hillary Clinton.
But, you don't understand. War with Russia is the ultimate goal. And it's not really war between the U.S. and Russia. It's a war between the Federal Reserve note and the ruble, or in the case of China, the Federal Reserve note and the yuan.
Right.
Because the U.S. has lost its manufacturing, both in quantity and quality. Nobody wants our GMO agriculture. The only thing still holding up our economy is forcing other nations to use our currency for cross-border trade and banking and charging them interest on it.
But
in other words, literally making our money by taking a piece of the action of everybody else's productivity and commerce around the world.
But, Mike, Russia has developed weaponry that actually works. Our weapons procurement system is, I hate to use this word, but it's the only word I can put my tongue to. It's incestuous between the congressional representatives who greenlight the projects and those weapons companies that make the weapons and the planes. I mean, the perfect example of this is the F-35, which is still nowhere near ready to go at all. I mean, don't Morell and Clinton have some people who are willing to talk some sense to the fact that we may well not win this war because we don't conscript, and our weapons programs are pretty awful.
Well, they're getting ready to conscript right now. The issue is all of these politicians are surrounded by people who protect their huge paychecks by telling these leaders what they think the leaders want to hear rather than what they need to know.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the closing days of World War II, Hitler had the same problem. He was out there saying, we're going to move this battalion here and this battalion there. The battalions were gone. They'd already been lost enemy action. None of his generals would dare tell Hitler, you're wrong, these resources are not there, because Hitler would fly into a rage, general would be put in front of a firing squad, and that was it. We're in that same situation, where our leaders are operating on the basis of deeply flawed perceptions of the world, because they're surrounded by these parasitic sycophants, and all caught up in groupthink, and in love with this idea that, with the exception of Vietnam, America's never lost a war. And they actually believe the propaganda from Hollywood that the U.S. single-handedly won both World War I and World War II, and that absolutely was not the truth.
Yeah. And it's, I've got to tell you, I frankly do not want anyone in the White House who is pathologically incapable of either thinking a scenario through to its logical conclusion or listening to the truth. And it appears that Clinton just does not want to hear the truth, neither does Morell. Oh, and in terms, do we have the Gecko Cam going now?
Yeah, the Gecko Cam was going, but he just went behind the clock. I guess he's being camera shy today.
Yeah.
All righty, well, you just missed your chance at stardom.
Yes, just lost his chance for a career in showbiz.
Yes.
Another one of the WikiLeaks emails that I find fascinating, and this appeared in Blacklisted News today. Hillary campaign struggles to reach expletive-deleted, dumb young people.
Yeah.
A new email released by WikiLeaks as part of the Podesta dump features Hillary ally Wendy Bronfein advising Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta of how to reach, and this is her characterization, and millennials, if you're listening, or parents of millennials, if you're listening, how to reach the expletive-deleted dumb people. Marketing executive Bronfein tells Podesta that Clinton may not be the best face to attract younger voters, and that she needs to utilize trending figures as a part of an infusion to pull younger voters, because that's the that young people pay attention to. Boy, I really had to delete my expletives this afternoon.
Yes, you did.
Bronfein goes on to state, it's dumb, but being cool counts for more than maybe it should. She references Bill Clinton's saxophone playing as an example of this before asserting, I hate to generalize a generation by social media nature, but they follow. If someone they identify as cool endorses, they will likely fall in line with that candidate. Bronfein is introduced to John Podesta in another email as someone who could be immensely helpful in improving HRC's connection to millennials. Those younger voters, characterized by Bronfein as expletive-deleted dumb, have the wisdom to understand that if Hillary gets elected, it will be that generation, both the young men and women, who will be drafted for World War III, which she wants to start as soon as she can, as immediately as human possible, after she steals the election. And to all the millennials who read this, I hope you are just as angry about how Hillary's campaign characterizes you as I am. I mean, Michael, this is a complete insult to an entire generation of young people.
It really is, and more than that, it betrays a certain institutional arrogance, a certain elitism, where they see themselves as automatically somehow superior to the general population. And it's an attitude that can evolve, both from being in high political office or close to somebody in high political office.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, in fact, an attitude I have seen within the advertising and public relations agencies, management in general, because they spend all their time manipulating and fooling people,
Mm-hmm.
and over time they tend to lose respect. Because of how easy it can be to manipulate entire populations, and they're seen as a target and as a product, and they're not seen as people deserving of respect because they can be swindled.
Yeah. I am so angry. These kids understand, and I don't use kids in a disparaging way. I turned 67 this last year, so everyone below, yes, everyone below 30 is a kid to me. If you sang in my choir, you'd understand what that meant. It's a good thing. Okay. I would like to move over to the situation in Yemen that no one is talking about.
Okay.
This is from HuffPo, where occasionally something approaching a rational story can still be found when she is not bashing Donald Trump. Yemen's suspected cholera cases soared to 1,400 within weeks, and it's the World Health Organization is reporting this. It's ballooned within 3 weeks of the outbreak being declared, as 18 months of war has destroyed most health facilities and clean water supplies. Yemen's health ministry announced the outbreak on October 6th in Sana'a city, and by October 10th, the World Health Organization said that there were 24 suspected cases. The following day, a WHO official in Yemen said that there was no spread of the disease, but on Friday, WHO spokesman Tarek Jarasavic told a Geneva news briefing that as of Thursday, we're talking yesterday, folks, there were 1,410 suspected cholera cases.
Wow, that's bad.
And the conflict between a Saudi Arabia-led coalition and the Iran-aligned Houthi movement has destroyed much of Yemen's infrastructure, killed more than 10,000 people, and displaced millions. Well, dear, the House of Saud and the Saudi military must feel very proud about these numbers and about destroying the medical infrastructure. After all, enabled with U.S. bombs purchased from General Dynamics, they have shelled hospitals and schools with absolute impunity. So, congratulations, House of Saud, the Saudi military, and the enabling U.S. government, and Firat Genzen, president of General Dynamics, who I am calling out at this moment, head of their ordnance and tactical systems, for illness, death, and starvation you have brought about in Yemen, courtesy of the bombing and the Saudi naval blockade. And what I did when I was composing this article, Mike, I took some images of Saudi children who are literally emaciated. They can't function. The bones are just poking through the skin in their bodies. Mm-hmm. And the mental functions have all but stopped. And I have asked our readers to please not look away from these images, because the U.S. supporting the Saudi campaign against the Houthis in Yemen has caused this.
The photos are of the Yemenite children.
Yes, of the Yemenite children.
You said Saudi before.
I'm sorry, Yemenite children.
All right, so back up.
Yeah, sorry.
We're talking about the
rented lips.
Yes, the Yemen children. I mean, children in war zones suffer. There's never been an exception to that. Mm-hmm. And you do have to look at that and confront that, because the U.S. government is ultimately responsible for all this death and destruction and mayhem across the face of planet Earth. You go back over the last 15 years and look at how many countries the U.S. has attacked, invaded, drone-struck, regime-changed. We're seeing a new scale of human misery. We're in World War territory already in terms of the sheer magnitude of military action and displacement. Europe is dealing with the biggest refugee crisis since World War II. All we're missing is a single bang to pull all these little military operations together and somebody say, by golly, we're in World War III right now, and start singing all those old Tom Lehrer songs.
And you know something, when I think about how I feel about the way that the U.S. is enabling this death, this murder, this starvation, I am absolutely ashamed of the United States government on this. Completely ashamed. You know, if there was another country that would take us at our age, I might really be tempted at this point. A country that doesn't do this kind of stuff. Maybe Iceland.
Well, part of the problem is our government has been doing this kind of stuff all along, certainly since the end of World War II. We were not supposed to know about it. Now we do.
Yeah.
We know that since the end of World War II, the United States government has tried covert regime change against 50 other countries on Earth. Some of them supposedly are allies, like France.
Yeah.
And they've succeeded about half the time. And whether they succeed or fail, they leave devastation in their wake.
Absolutely. I'd like to go back to the U.S. right now. And this is regarding the protests for the oil pipeline in North Dakota.
Yes.
A no-fly zone has been declared, and this, again, is from Blacklisted News, as militarized police prep for assault.
Well, you know, those darn Sioux, they were using attack helicopters against George Custer, and we have to have it.
No, they've been praying.
They're keeping the media out.
Yeah,
is what they're
and
doing.
it's a very ominous sign. The Federal Aviation Administration has restricted flights and banned the use of drones within a radius of about 4.5 miles of Cannonball. The FAA declared that only aircraft affiliated with the North Dakota Tactical Operations Center. Let me read that one more time. North Dakota has a Tactical Operations Center. They're the only people allowed in this airspace. The flight restriction went into effect Wednesday and will last until November 5th. Indian Country Today reports what began with prayers in a single teepee along Highway 1806 quickly grew to more than a dozen teepees surrounded by tents, buses, cars, and hundreds of water protectors. Some are calling it the 1851 Treaty Camp to acknowledge their treaty rights. Across the road is the encroaching pipeline and a heavily militarized police force with armored vehicles, helicopters, planes, ATVs, busloads of officers. And tensions are growing as unarmed citizens are worrying that police will use unnecessarily harsh tactics.
Well, they already have. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been using attack dogs.
LRADs.
And the rest of it. Now,
Yeah.
there's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. First of all, the Army Corps of Engineers has already admitted that the company building the pipeline does not, in fact, have all the required paperwork to be building in that particular location. It would have been easier but more expensive for them to shift the route off of this sacred land, but they didn't want to do that. Their attitude is, hey, it's the government's job to get these people out of our way.
Yeah.
And we've certainly seen that before. We know that the U.S. government has an abysmal record of keeping their treaty obligations with the Native Americans. I mean, journalists, even establishment media journalists who are on the ground there, are being threatened with prison.
Yes.
For taking any kind of pictures or videos showing these armed security guards attacking these Native American protesters.
And I've got to ask Mike, a no-fly zone over North Dakota, isn't that what the U.S. government has been doing overseas right when they're planning some kind of decap strike, as happened with Gaddafi in Libya?
That's exactly right. These protesters don't have aircraft.
No.
The reason for the aircraft and drone ban is they don't want any independent media coverage of what is about to happen, because they saw what a mess it created up in Oregon and down there at the Bundy Ranch. Those pesky independent media people, they're just getting in the way of our land snatch. And that's exactly what it is. You probably have seen in the corporate media where they're talking about how the Indians are camped out on private land. They're on private land. That gives us the right to kick them off. Well, the land in question, where the protesters are currently staying, was seized with a very questionable eminent domain, which in and of itself is a violation of that existing treaty between the Sioux. This is supposed to be reservation land where the Native Americans have governmental authority as to what's going on. And the issue with the pipeline, as underscored by they had another one that blew up over there in the southeast. These pipelines cannot be guaranteed to not taint and poison the environment. At issue is the water supply for the Native Americans in that area. If that pipeline leaks into that water supply, it's going to cause problems. And what we get from the oil company, what we get from the establishment media and the government is the pipelines are fine. They're going to be fine. And yet we're hearing about leaks all over the place. They had that major one in the southeast just a month ago.
Right.
And the Native Americans are very right, first of all, to stand on their treaty rights and to be concerned about what happens if this pipeline poisons their soil and water. That's their livelihood.
Yes.
They grow their food there. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program on this Pauhana Friday, and Claire's got one more thing she wants to share with you.
Yes, there was a wonderful op-ed, again in Blacklisted News, from Dennis Kucinich, and it was his warning on D.C.'s think tank warmongers. And he says that Washington, D.C. may be the only place in the world where people openly flaunt their pseudo-intellectuality by banding together, declaring themselves think tanks, and raising money from external interests, including foreign governments, to compile reports that advance policies inimical to the real-life concerns of the American people. And he says, as a former member of the House of Representatives, I remember 16 years of congressional hearings where pedigreed experts came to advocate war in testimony based on circular Rococo thinking devoid of depth, reality, and truth. I remember other hearings where the Pentagon was unable to reconcile over $1 trillion in accounts and lost track of $12 billion in cash sent to Iraq, and a rigged missile defense test so that the interceptor could easily home in on a target. War is, first and foremost, a profitable racket. And, Mike, I think that the problem in the way that war is fought from the United States, there should be a constitutional amendment that everybody running for office or in office, if they have kids, those kids must immediately enlist
and be put on the front lines.
And be put on the front lines.
I think that should be a rule for the entire population.
Yeah.
If you are in favor of the war, we're going to take your kid, and your kid goes on the front line.
And we have family and friends in the military, so this matters a lot to us.
But our system is set up to basically separate those who want war from those who are fighting the war, and more importantly, to even absolve those who really want the war of guilt. That's the reason for the think tank.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a bunch of money. You're going to come back and tell us war is the best idea. Then we can turn around and say, we must have war. They said so. I'm not to blame.
Right.
That's what the think tanks make their money from. They are the sin eaters of the war machine.
That's a very good analogy. I like that.
Well, thank you I just made that up right out of my brain. Just came out here. All right, we're coming up here on the end of the show, so we're going to say, first of all, hope you have a really good weekend. A lot of things happening in the news. We're going to be keeping an eye on it. I just hope there isn't some kind of a false flag to blunt the new FBI investigation and the corporate media turning on the Hillary Clinton campaign. But the Clintons are capable of anything, so who knows what's going to happen. But again, a reminder, look at what's happening with the corporate media and WikiLeaks and count it as a victory of all of you as part of the independent media. Because it's the fact that you have been taking this information and putting it out there that we reached this turning point where so many people know about the corruption that's going on. The corporate media is being forced to deal with it rather than look like they're complicit in the cover-up. So keep it up. You're doing a good job. We're achieving some real results working together. And again, just take what you learn here on the radio show, what's on the WhatReallyHappened.com website, gently present it to everybody who still believes that the TV news is telling them the truth. Must be what, 5 or 6 people still like that?
Yeah.
And we'll pass on. Meanwhile, we'll be back Monday on Republic Broadcasting. Have a good weekend. Aloha, America.
Aloha.